Exactly how harmful are mail-in ballots? Well, we know from an election integrity standpoint they opened up the door to a lot of fraud. I can get into that later. But from a partisan electoral politics standpoint, exactly how much do mail-in ballots hurt Republicans' ability to win elections? I'm going to get into that from a little bit of a roundabout way. I'm going to use a couple analogies to explain it. The first is a game of Monopoly. Most people play by the rule set of you need all three properties of the same color before you're allowed to start putting houses on those. A few people like the rule set where you don't need to do that, you can just start putting houses on any property you own. So which rule set are we playing by? Well, if everyone else at the table is playing by the second rule set where you can put houses wherever, and if you're the one person at the table who doesn't like that rule set, how much does it help if you decide stubbornly that you're not going to put houses on any property unless you have a full set of three of the same color? That's essentially putting an artificial hindrance on yourself that nobody else at the table is putting on themselves. Or here's another argument: when people are talking about the Second Amendment, talking about gun-free zones, it's common to hear someone say that the criminals are not going to obey that gun-free zone sign. They will bring their criminal guns into that zone, regardless of whether or not the property owner tries to make it a gun-free zone. What you're doing is discouraging lawful people from bringing lawful weapons onto that place. So if there ever is a school shooting, well, now we're a lot less prepared. With mail-in ballots, it's a similar concept, or at least it was. In 2020, Democrats caught the Republicans completely with their pants down. They got the COVID mail-in ballot thing through, and then they started utilizing that right away. What do I mean by utilizing that? Well, these parties have lists of registered voters from the voter rolls. So what this looks like on a spreadsheet is each row is one person. They have the name, address, date of birth, when you register to vote, phone number, email. You would be surprised how much information parties have on just everyone. Because a lot of this information is just public access, and the parties know where to get it because they want to use that. That's a topic for another day. But when the political parties compile these lists of voters, they also assign them a voter propensity number. That's a number between 1 and 5. That's based on how long you've been registered to vote and how often you vote. How many of the presidential elections, how many of the midterm elections, have you skipped any in the past 4 or 8 years? So they use this number to figure out the likelihood of each voter to actually make sure their vote is submitted on election day. 5 being the most likely to get a vote in, and 1 being the least likely. Well, before mail-in ballots, the average voter had to actually go to the polls in person. But mail-in ballots changed the game up a little. So if you're a Republican organizer, your job is to tell all the door knockers in your district where to go. And if we don't have mail-in ballots yet, you're probably going to want to make sure the 3s and the 4s know what's going on in the election. Going to make sure they know who the down ballot candidates are, not just the presidential candidate, and make sure they don't forget to actually get in their car and drive to the polling place. So that's the mindset Republicans had going into 2020. The Democrats, on the other hand, their organizers saw the mail-in ballot change. They thought to themselves, hey, we can have people sitting on their couch and filling out their ballot and then just mailing it. They don't even have to leave their home. So what they did is they started going to these 1s and 2s, the low propensity voters, not encouraging them to drive to the polling place, no, but instead they encouraged them to get a mail-in ballot request form, meaning their county will have that ballot mailed to their home. So now the people who are less likely to get out of the house, well, they can still vote. You've unlocked a whole new pool of voters, and that's what we saw in 2020. Republicans were slow to adapt to that. We were sort of halfway there in 2022. But then in 2024, we came back in a huge way. We saw Scott Presler with his whole parallel team of door knockers swarming every county in Pennsylvania, getting thousands upon thousands of people out to the polls. Republicans have more than compensated for that, and Presler's people know how to target those low propensity voters. Some of the grassroots right-wing groups that I've seen weren't quite as much up with that knowledge. I've seen some of them encouraging the activists, the members of their groups, the people who, even when it's not an election, they come out and they meet with these groups. The number 5 highest propensity voters, encouraging those people to take a mail-in ballot. I would say that's not necessarily needed because a vote is a vote is a vote. It doesn't matter who wins in the in-person voting. It doesn't matter who wins in the mail-in ballot voting. What matters is the final vote total. But as a way to increase the final vote total, the idea is to unlock these low propensity voters who, if we don't visit them, make sure they have a mail-in ballot request, make sure they fill it out, it might require bugging them multiple times, and then make sure they actually get it mailed back in. Unlocking those low propensity voters is what increases the pool of total voters for Republicans to draw from. And that is what I think Republicans are going to get even better at in 2026.